the official welcome. First, I'll mute anybody that's there we go. Um, so, welcome. It's really nice to be able to be here, even if there's only a few of us. I'm always really happy because just being able to sit together and welcome people of every age and ethnicity and cultural heritage and religious background and socioeconomic group and ability, sexual orientation and gender identity, just being an open and diverse organization, especially in a town that is majorly white. PIMC has been studying together and practicing for the benefit of all people, all beings. And we recognize the suffering caused by biases and prejudices and systems of power and privilege and oppression based on race and sex and class and ethnicity and national origin and gender identity. And we aspire to do no harm in the Buddhist practice and to dismantle barriers that cause separation and suffering, and recognizing that our liberation is interconnected with the liberation of all. And it's also important to acknowledge the lands that we sit on. Portland Insight Meditation Community, located in Portland, is the place where the ancestral lands of the Clackamas, the Cowlitz, the 7 tribes of the Confederate tribes of the Grand Ronde, and the 27 bands of confederated tribes of the Siletz peoples, and respectfully acknowledging all the indigenous communities of the past and the present and the future. The indigenous peoples of this land were forced to leave for the benefits of colonists and settlers, and acknowledging the systemic policies of genocide, relocation, and assimilation that still has an impact on many indigenous families today makes me really grateful for their stewardship and of these lands, and to acknowledge the efforts and recognize their knowledge and creativity and resilience. To those who have come before, the original makers and artists and healers, we humbly stand with them in support of their livelihood and their crafts and their sacred histories and stories. So may all beings be recognized as inherently worthy, and may healing and reconciliation come to those who need it most. And I also like to acknowledge the ancestral Asian population in the Buddhist lineage. It was introduced in the U.S. by Asian immigrants in the 19th century, and a significant number of immigrants from East Asia began to arrive in the New World. And the United States, immigrants from China entered around 1820, and then they began arriving in large numbers following the 1849 California gold rush. And so there have been immigrant Buddhist congregations in North America as diverse as the various different peoples of Asian Buddhist extraction who settled here. Sri Lankan Buddhists, Chinese Buddhists, Japanese Buddhists, Korean Buddhists, Thai Buddhists, Cambodian Buddhists, Vietnamese Buddhists, and Buddhists with family backgrounds in most Buddhist countries and regions. And Portland is no exception, with a lot of various Buddhist temples. And the lineage of my teachers is in Theravadan, who come from Southeast Asia and from Burma. So with all of that acknowledgement, which is important to me, that we know that we sit with our ancestors and we acknowledge atrocities, and we make reconciliation as best we can, particularly just in taking this time to sit together to let go of any kinds of attachments and clinging that we might have to identity, and just noticing how suffering arises within us. So I'm going to take a moment here to ring this bell. And ask you to find a comfortable place where you can still hear my voice. If you don't want to stay right in front of your computer, that's fine, but wherever you feel comfortable in your room sitting, and I'll do a gently guided meditation for about a half an hour or so, and then we'll have some loving kindness practice and a little break and continue from there. So allowing the body and mind to begin to come into a collected space together, wherever that is, a cushion, a chair, a couch. Sometimes if sleepiness comes along, we like to stand and make it a standing practice or a walking practice. Whatever works for you and the process of meditation that you might be used to. It's always good to just take a few moments to hold ourselves gently and kindly, and to acknowledge those who have gone before us, the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, the teachings of the Buddha which he discovered on his own. He didn't have any teachers. Luckily, we have teachers. He had teachers that he surpassed, but was unable to still feel that he was totally free from suffering until he forged his own way, the middle path, not falling into extremes at the time. And so we acknowledge the Buddha and other enlightened beings that have been able to transmit information for us for 2,600 years. And that the teachings, the truths, the Dhamma, came in the form of spoken word and then got written down and traveled from country to country. But in all of the translations in all of the countries, the practice is still the same of seeing for ourselves directly. And those teachings have been passed along through sanghas of lay people, monks and nuns, in an unbroken lineage from teacher to student, and those who had perfect memory of in the Buddha's times that could remember his teachings. And so we honor the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. And we have the protection of that to feel safe within, of the precepts. And by acknowledging the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha, the precepts of right speech, the simplest of not lying, not taking what isn't given to us, not being involved in sexual misconduct or involved in substances that can cloud the mind. And so we have this safety that we can sit in our most comfortable position. We can feel the pressure of our buttocks on the seat or the chair where we're sitting, or if we're standing, the pressure under our feet on the floor, bringing us into the present moment. And often we have a practice of just beginning with noticing hearing, noticing the senses, what is happening around us, either far away, out on the street outside our window, or in another room in our home, or close up. We might hear different things arriving to the ears, sound arriving to the ear door. And we have taste, we have smell arriving at the nose, we have touching, the touch of our buttocks on the chair, the touch of our hands resting somewhere, the direct sensation of heat or coolness in these places. Any number of objects may come to us from each of these sense doors, and the thought door, that door of thinking, which we tend to use a lot. And so we can notice as we gather what sense door might be most predominant. And as we settle into noticing gravity, we can allow some relaxation to happen behind our eyes and in our jaw, holding ourselves in kindness, in natural ease, feeling the body settle, the bones align themselves in the spine, feeling the buttocks on the cushion. And we have the breath arising, staying for a certain amount of time and leaving. We may notice the breath at the nostrils, feeling cool or warm, whether it's the inhale or the exhale. Or we may notice the breath at the diaphragm, pressure as we inhale, noticing heat or tightness, other sensations that arrive as the diaphragm inhales, and then there's that ending of the inhale and that space before the falling of the exhale. And so we can notice beginnings and endings by just using the breath. We can notice the breath at the beginning of an inhale. We can notice that we can't really expand the inhale very much. And in this practice, we don't need to. In some practices, in yoga practices and other breathing exercises often, the breath is expanded or held, which we don't do in this particular practice. But even if we were doing that, we can soon discover that at a certain point, the breath is breathing itself, and it's going to go to the next part of the breath, whether it's inhaling or exhaling. And so we hold ourselves right here in this moment of noticing what's happening with the breath. Is it a short breath or a long breath? Can we notice when it begins or when it ends? As we feel ourselves held in gravity and holding the container of our body breathing, we can settle in a relaxed and easeful manner. Naturally, just letting the breath arise and pass, but we're bringing mindfulness to it. And so we want to have energy and effort and awareness being present to this moment using the breath or the touch point of the buttocks on the cushion or the feet on the floor as a place to bring us back to in the present moment. Arising and passing away. All conditioned things come together. They stay for as long as those conditions are held together, and then they dissipate as the breath arises. We're present with it. We can notice the pressure or the coolness, the warmth, sensations that occur. We might notice when the inhale has stopped. That little space before the exhale begins. Moments of freedom from conditions. Holding ourselves with ease, kindness, a kind of naturalness. This practice is, we're a part of nature. We don't have to push to make anything happen, but we do want to have enough energy and interest to really be present in this moment. And we can often notice what happens when we grasp on to one of these moments. It might be pleasant and we want it to last longer, but we can't control it and it doesn't. Or we may notice that we're pushing something away, having some kind of dialogue, commentary in our thoughts of wishing this particular moment wouldn't last quite so long. And we can see those directly as moments in which suffering arises because we're clinging on to something or we're pushing something away. We want just to be at ease with whatever's arising, whether it's pleasant or unpleasant, or we can't really tell. It can be neutral. So we're relaxed yet aware, returning to that present moment of the touch point or the breath at the nostrils or the belly. If we find ourselves wandering too much in thought, we can also wake up right there in that moment of thought, going, a wakeful moment, a moment of mindfulness, and go on from there, seeing what comes to us at our senses or returning to the breath or the touch point. Anything that comes into the mind is worth attending to. We may notice as we settle that there are other conditions that arise. Being still in the body and calming the mind over time often reveals sensations in the body. We may notice itching, stabbing, throbbing. We can give soft, gentle notes to sensations that arise, just sensations arising in the body. Or you might feel coolness on your nose or face from the air. We're just noticing what arises and being with it, holding on to that object with our awareness as long as it lasts. And then when the object leaves due to conditions, our awareness leaves and arises with the next object that our mindfulness and awareness is attending to. So we're stringing together these moments of mindfulness, continuity of practice, of being in the present moment without having judgment about it. Or if we notice that we're having judgment about it, we can investigate that a little more to notice whether it's skillful or unskillful activity of the heart and mind. And we can let go what isn't skillful and incline our hearts and minds back toward kindness, compassion for ourselves, more skillful mental states to support us. When the mind wanders, lost in thought, or maybe sleepiness and dullness, or there might be agitation in the mind or doubt in the mind about the practice, those 5 hindrances that can arise easily, we just notice and we can give them a note. Ah, yes, restless mind, or grasping, or agitation, sleepiness, whatever happens, we can just wake up in that moment without judgment, kindly returning ourselves to the breath, or noticing the feeling sensation of pleasant or unpleasant or neutral that might arise with what we're noticing. And so we just go over and over, beginning again, staying present, training our unruly minds, taming them, and training them to renounce and let go of what we don't need to hang on to or isn't useful for the present moment, and being kind, holding ourselves in gentleness and ease. And when things are difficult with the practice or we're judgmental, we can allow compassion to arise, holding ourselves gently, knowing that sometimes things are difficult. We're doing the best we can. Staying stable with mindfulness in the middle of a rushing river sometimes. Sometimes we can just ask ourselves, what is the attitude of the mind? What is the attitude of our heart and mind right now? We may notice if there's some constriction or grasping at something, or maybe it feels very vast and open. We can sit in this entire body breathing, being present for whatever arises. Whatever's happening, it's a natural occurrence. We're with it and present as best as we can be. Knowing that we have the container to feel safe within. That of doing no harm, including doing no harm to ourselves. And so we can see whatever arises. If we grasp or cling to it, we bring ourselves discomfort. And as we let it go, we can have more ease. Gently coming back to the present moment if we've wandered away. Allowing ourselves to let some of this concentration that arises from this practice be of benefit to ourselves and to others by engaging a little while in the Metta practice of loving kindness. So as we held ourselves gently and with compassion throughout our meditation, may we let our hearts and minds incline toward the repetition of one of the simple phrases, if you know the phrases, or it might be a bodily felt sensation, or perhaps you know some of the Brahmaviharas, the practices of the divine abodes, and have your own phrases. But just allowing the heart and mind to bring to the imagination a sense of spaciousness, a sense of calmness. It can include a sense of joy and equanimity. There may be a feeling of happiness that we can contain when we see a child play or laughing, or see a cat roll over on its back to be pet, or a puppy that does the same. Or maybe in nature, taking a walk, we can recall in our minds something that brings joy and openness and kindness to ourselves. And may we invoke this feeling to embrace a close friend, thinking of someone we know, that it's easy to have kindness for, seeing this person happy and healthy, wishing them to be at ease, having a space in our hearts to hold them in gentleness. Wishing them to be free from harm, free from anxiety, free from illness. May they know happiness and have causes of happiness. And knowing that there are times when things are challenging, that we have compassion in our hearts for their suffering. And may they too have compassion for themselves when things are difficult. May we hold them kindly and compassionately in our hearts. And as we hold this space in our hearts for that friend, may we also include a teacher, a benefactor, a being from whom we've derived great benefit. It could be an animal, it could be a child, it could be a teacher. Maybe it's our first meditation teacher. Or surprisingly, sometimes all kinds of different teachers come to mind. surprise us. Choosing one, holding this being in that heart space of kindness. Seeing them happy and healthy. Wishing them in gladness to be safe and protected and find ease in their lives. May you be at ease. Remembering our breath, remembering our inhale and exhale. Repeating whatever phrase is suitable for you or a heart-felt feeling, heart-sensed feeling. May you be at ease. May you be free from harm. Free from anxiety, free from ill will. And expanding that space within our heart where the friend and the benefactor is, to also include a neutral person, someone that you see from time to time but don't really know. Or maybe it's a group of people that you don't know that you want to include for kindness and compassion. Envisioning this neutral person or small group being held in kindness and goodwill. May they have ease in their lives. Just as I wish to be happy, I know that you also wish to be happy. May you be free from harm, safe and protected, have ease and well-being. And letting these feelings of kindness extend in this group to compassion, knowing that things are often difficult. And we can allow equanimity to be present so that we don't fall into extremes while holding their suffering in our hearts. Being present for difficulty. We know that sometimes things are hard. May you hold yourself in compassion when things are difficult for you, just as I hold you in compassion. May you notice moments of joy, held in equanimity, the happiness and the sorrow. And now gently opening more to including people that we don't know, and other people within our own circles of family and friends, neighbors, maybe some of the neighbors we don't know, or people in our part of town. As this was described by the Buddha, it was in all directions, from to the east, to the south, to the west, and to the north, all around and everywhere, beings above and below, those that are seen and unseen, beings that swim and crawl and walk and fly, those enlightened and those unenlightened, those in suffering and sorrow, and those in joy and happiness. May all beings be free from harm, free from ill will, have ease and well-being, be free from anxiety. Know happiness as their true home. And if we hold these beings in our hearts, wishing them kindness and compassion, may we know that the goodness of this practice is of benefit to ourself and all beings. May all beings be free. Anicca vata sankhara upadavaya domino upakitava meruchanti te samvapasamo sukho. All conditioned things are subject to impermanence. They arise due to conditions, they come together, and they fall apart. And seeing this clearly with mindfulness brings the greatest happiness, which is peace. Thank you so much for your practice. It brings me great joy, and may it do the same for you.